Welcome back to the More Than Capable Mompreneur podcast. I'm Shannon Baker, a coffee-loving mompreneur that started as a virtual assistant and turned into a total systems geek. And I want to help you shift your mindset and embrace your worthiness while creating systems in your business so you can be more productive and build success on your own terms without the mom guilt. Are you loving that? Well, I hope you're ready for real conversations that will help you beat the perfectionist inside, rediscover your strengths, and up-level your self-love in the mom cracks of time so you can stop letting fear hold you back because you are enough and you do enough. We are more than capable mompreneurs. So grab your cup of coffee, some sparkling water, or pour a glass of your favorite wine and let's dive in. I'd like to welcome you to episode number 76. And if you've listened to episode number 75, which is my chat with Stacey Harris of Uncommonly More, then you are probably ready to jump in and start your own podcast. And I'm excited for you because I love it. But before you do that, I need you to map out a workflow for your podcast process. Take it from me, this is going to keep you from getting overwhelmed by all the things this journey is going to require. I shared a few of the lessons that I've learned on this journey in episode number 25. And let me tell you, if I had a better podcast workflow in the beginning, I could have avoided a lot of hiccups and mistakes because I was rushing and forgot some important steps. A podcast workflow is the process that you follow to produce every episode. It's the steps that you take from beginning to end so that you don't forget anything. Having this process laid out is going to help you keep up with all the moving pieces that are required to produce quality episodes consistently, and most importantly, you will not experience podfade. A documented workflow is the key to being able to batch podcast tasks and save yourself some time. That way you can work on the pieces that you need for each episode in one time period in your schedule. So you can sit down and come up with topics for the month or the quarter. Create the graphics that you need for the month. Start your show notes. I think you get the point. Basically, you'll be able to plan ahead of time and complete these like tasks without becoming disorganized or overwhelmed. A podcast workflow is also going to minimize mistakes like uploading the wrong file. I've done that. And your workflow needs to include a checklist that you can use over and over again. It ensures that everything gets done, from show notes to sending an email to your subscribers to the blog post, pinning on Pinterest, all those things and more. Your podcast workflow documents everything so you know what needs to be done for every single episode. And you don't have to think about it. Just check it off as you complete each of the tasks. And like most of us, you are probably going to start off handling all the things for your podcast yourself, and that is absolutely okay. But if you do decide to start outsourcing some things, having this podcast workflow is going to make it easy for you to identify what you can hand off and just say, hey, I need you to complete this for me. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, or even if you follow me on social media, you know I am all about automating as many tasks as possible in your business. And tasks in your podcast workflow are no exception. Anything that you can automate is just one less task that you have to worry about, which frees up time so that you can focus on marketing your business, growing relationships with other podcast hosts, the people who listen to your podcast, be a guest on other podcasts to share your expertise, engaging with people on social media, sharing your expertise with the world. That takes time. But automating those tasks again is going to give you that time. Now, I'm going to share some of the automations that I have in my podcast workflow in a bit. But right now, since we've talked about the benefits of having this workflow, here's a simple step-by-step workflow that you can use to help you get started. Now, I want you to take these steps and customize them so that you can keep your podcast alive. Step number 1, write down all the tasks of your podcast workflow. This will be all the major tasks you have to repeat for every episode. Selecting your topic, writing your outline or your script, drafting your show notes, searching for images for your graphics, creating your graphics, then recording your episode, editing, finalizing your show notes, making sure you include SEO keywords and links to resources, and don't forget those prior episodes as well, and then schedule your episode to publish. And if you have guests on your show, you can duplicate your podcast workflow and add additional tasks. You can add in searching for guests, connecting with them online, nurturing those relationships, reading over their content, watching their videos so you can get familiar with them. Invite people to be a guest on your podcast if they're a good fit for your audience. Let them know in advance the topic that you want to discuss. And if they accept the invitation, all you have to do is send a link to your calendar for them to schedule that. Now, step 2, you need to create checklists for completing the necessary tasks. Checklists are a great way to make sure that you complete all the steps needed in your podcast workflow. It captures sub-level details that you definitely need. For instance, when it comes to creating graphics for your episodes, your checklist could include the different images you need for social media, Instagram, Facebook, your blog, Pinterest, the audiogram. And these checklists are going to be a time saver, and you're definitely going to need them for step 3. Step 3 is to track your task in a project management app. Once you have your podcast workflow outlined, you need to keep it organized in a project management app. Now, if you don't know already, I absolutely love Trello and I organize everything in there. That's where my podcast workflow board is set up. I have a list for each phase of my process. So I have a list for episode topics. I create a card for the topics that I come up with, and to save time, I have a template card that I just copy, but it keeps my format consistent. I have a list for recorded episodes. When I move a card to that list after I've recorded an episode, then I know it needs to be edited. And then when an episode is published, which is another list that I have on my board, well, that's pretty self-explanatory. But I put the date that the episode is going to be published in the description box. Now I'm going to talk about these checklists again. I have automation set up inside my Trello board that adds the checklist to the cards as I move them from list to list. You can set these up even if you're on the free version of Trello. Basically, it's built in, and here are the steps. You basically have to create the rule. So you open up your podcast workflow Trello board, click the automation button in the right corner and click on create a rule. Then you need a trigger, which is when a card is added to the list and you select that list and you hit the green circle with the plus sign. Then you need to select an action. So you click checklist, enter the name of your checklist from your template, the name of the card where the checklist is located, and hit the green circle with the plus sign. I know it sounds complicated, so if you need some help, DM me and I can help you get that set up. But once you've created your rule, don't forget to hit the green save button. Otherwise, you will lose everything that you've done. The great thing is you can create lists for each phase of your guest chats as well and follow the same process. Now, I do have some additional automation in place using Zapier, because when someone books a guest chat with me, it automatically creates a card and pulls in all the information that I need from that person, which they have submitted on my intake form. Here's the thing. Once your tasks are organized this way, you'll be able to batch tasks together, which again saves you time. For instance, you might brainstorm a list of potential episodes all at one time. Having this list is great because you can add topic ideas to the list as they come to you, and then you have a bank of ideas to choose from. Now, step number 4. Again, automate as many tasks as you can. You know I was not going to end this episode without talking about automation. So, what can you do? Well, every task that you automate represents more time to devote to something else in your business. One area that many podcast hosts lack is automation for getting guests scheduled to be on the show. Everyone has their own schedule. So instead of the back and forth to get a call scheduled, and this goes for your business as well, you can use an online scheduler. I use Acuity. But all you have to do is just send a link to your calendar, and then your guests can pick a time that works for both of you because your schedule is preset. Now, for more automation tips, I recommend creating an intake form, which will gather all the information that you need from your guests, their headshot, their bio, a link to their freebie for your audience, etc. That way, you don't have to scramble to get that information from them later. I also have automation in my workflow, again, that creates the Trello card for me automatically when someone schedules the chat with me. So that's it. I know I've given you a lot, but these are just basic tips to help you get started to build your podcast workflow. Once you get it all drafted out, reach out to other podcasters in your community and see how they manage their podcasts. They might have some little tricks and tweaks that are going to save you even more time and effort. In the end, you want to create a workflow that works for you. One that makes your life easier so you can focus on creating great content on your podcast, growing your community, and growing your business. The more you use your workflow, the more efficient you will become. But that will only happen if you use it. So once you create it, you need to use it. Now, if you would like for me to help you map out your podcast workflow and get some of the automation set up that I talked about, feel free to schedule a 60-minute clarity call with me. You don't have to do this alone, and I would love to help you so you can enjoy the journey as your podcast grows. But that's it for this episode. Now make sure you tune in next week because I'm going to share some tips to help you organize all the podcast files you're going to have. Without organization, you will lose so much time trying to find the things that you need. And we don't want that to happen. Don't forget, you can find a link to the episodes that I mentioned and my calendar in the show notes if you want to schedule that call. Now, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, please let me know. Take a screenshot, post it in Instagram stories, and tag me at @_Shannon Baker, or just send me a DM. I would love to chat with you. And remember, you are more than enough. So until next time, keep calm and streamline.